All right, I am Jacob Barcolone, or sometimes referred to as JRC. I am a writer, a filmmaker, music producer from New Jersey, and I am the author of the upcoming Manhattan 24, my debut novel. This is my journey, how I got here, where I'm going, and how I developed the 4 passions that would define me. You know, for me, it definitely all started in the 3rd grade. I remember my teacher, Miss Mifsud, she gave us an assignment for a little skit, and me being me, I ended up writing Haunted Little Skit. That sprouted into a long series of, I want to say 17 Haunted Little Skit, little 1 to 2 page stories. But I always underestimated just how much this little bit of creativity really primed me for what I would later do, and actually expanded my skill sets more so than the other people around me in terms of softwares like Microsoft Word. But I would print out these short stories and I would post them on the bulletin board of my classroom. And I distinctly remember, I don't know how many times, they probably got bored of it after a while, but everyone in class lining up to read them, to celebrate them. And yeah, that just gave me the best feeling. And I knew immediately that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write and I wanted to create stories for people. Unfortunately, most of those stories are lost today. Who knows where they went, but that's okay. Because very soon after, around maybe 5th grade, I moved on to the bigger, tougher task of writing a book. The show 24 was, of course, a major inspiration. I always appreciated the creativity of the concept. The concept was so broad and so unlike anything else at the time or even now. To think of a drama series going on for 24 episodes for 8 seasons back to back, it's almost unheard of. And then each of those episodes written so meticulously as to take place in real time, so each hour out of the day. I mean, it's just brilliant. And it was the backbone for writing Manhattan 24, which was at the time called John Bison. I remember exactly where I was when I finished the first book. I was 14 years old. It was 2014 summer. I was in Isla Morada in the Florida Keys. We went on this big group vacation, my parents, family, friends. I remember being stuffed in one passenger van with, I don't even know, 15, 20 people for, it's gotta be somewhere between 18 to 22 hours. All the while I'm thinking about finishing this book and then what would come next. But before I moved on to writing John Bison 2, which is gonna be Manhattan 48, history got in the way. So in the 10th grade, I had this history teacher who I absolutely loved. Everybody loved him. I think he's probably one of the best teachers I've ever had, Mr. Walker. At that time, I was super inspired by the American Revolution and late 1700s, colonial America. I remember playing Assassin's Creed 3. So before I wrote Manhattan 48, I actually wrote a very short novella about Valley Forge, and it was called Forge, which I'm also in the process of rewriting so that maybe next year, 1776, 2026, 250th year, birthday to America. So it's almost like the stars have aligned for it to come out next year. I'm really excited to get back into that story because I really love researching and learning new things, and I think some of the best creativity comes from learning about the past. Unlike the 2, maybe 3 years it took to write John Bison, the sequel actually only took me a couple of months. I remember I was really into it, Probably shouldn't have been writing during my classes, but I totally was. Then really for several years after that, book writing actually took a major backseat, and then I found what would become my ultimate passion, filmmaking.
I can't believe I moved here. This place sucks. I wish I was back home. Hate my stepdad.
And for that, yet again, I actually have history class to thank, because most of the skits and short film projects that I did in high school were actually just assignments for history class.
This isn't even a proper meal.
Karen, not again. I told you to stop undermining me and your mother.
Like my spoof of Miami Vice, Washington Vice, that took place after the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan.
The president's been shot in Washington.
There's so little crime here, I might just commit one and arrest myself.
Sonny.
What would I do? Would I rob a bank, knock off an old lady?
Come in. Guys, the president shot. Damn it, Sonny.
I mean, these were goofy, fun little projects that we did after school, in and around the school, and I used this really crappy Sony Handycam. That was my first camera. It's ironic actually, because I hated that camera back then because it was pretty low quality, but nowadays that sort of look is seen as vintage, which is so interesting and kind of stupid. But yeah, that's what I used. Little to no lighting, barely any audio equipment, not a microphone like this. I knew that I needed to learn more about this. I knew I needed to hone in on this craft because it was so fun and it was exactly what I wanted to do. So I knew where I needed to go. I needed to go to film school. In the summer of 2017, I enrolled at Full Sail University, and for the first time in my life, I lived on my own in an apartment in Florida. It was like being in a Universal theme park for 2 years. It was just so fun and filled with creative people, filmmakers and musicians and gamers. It was here in film school that I learned everything about how a set operates, that people in the film industry do not sleep. And you're on set for 12 hours, have to spend an hour to get to set, depending on where you live. I live in New Jersey, so it takes an hour-ish to get to New York, so I have to wake up an hour before that, so that's 14 hours you're up. Then it takes another 2 hours or an hour to get home, so before you know it, you've been awake for 16 to 18 hours and you have not that much time to sleep, and then do it all over again. So that's pretty rough. But Full Sail actually prepares you for that. There's all sorts of workshops for you to play around with real film, and editing classes and writing classes, and they really pack everything into it. And this isn't paid promotion for Full Sail. It isn't sponsorship, even though that'd be pretty awesome if you want to. Film school, I also learned how to market myself and to pitch movies and to make presentations for projects, and it's where I had my first website. So many firsts for me during film school, and yeah, to me it wasn't a waste of time. To me it was actually instrumental, and it's also here where I would meet my creative partner, the co-owner of the company that we'd later start, Zymuth. And it was him who introduced me to the next major passion, which was comic books. And here we are almost 8 years later. I mean, that's just insane. We're about to release a whole slate of comic books, from the horror anthology Phobia to Grim World of Reapers to Harvester, Han Hanzai, Takeshi's Run, all by extraordinarily talented artists from across the world, Mexico, Philippines, everywhere you can think of. And yeah, I mean, it's just the most exciting time. So now we've reached the last 5 or so years, and I know they say that your 20s are supposed to be the best years of your life, and I'd kind of be lying if I said that they were so far. It's been a mix of ups and downs, of work and stagnation, of being on set for 16 hours and making decent money versus going months or even years without any work. But at least one thing stayed consistent, and that was creation. It was in this era, I guess you could say, that the last of the four passions was found, and that's music. Technically, I started making music in 2017 during my senior year of high school, but I tried not to count those mixtapes that I made back then. They were not great. It really didn't start kicking off until a little bit later when I found out that my cousins also made music. My cousins who live in North Carolina. And yeah, from there we started collaborating, and my cousin created the independent record label 47 Eyes on Me. And my first official single came out in 2021, featuring both of my cousins, Joey Zen and Finesse the Phantom, and that was called On to the Next. Yeah, and in the past few years, music has really given me a lot. I've made a lot of great friends, especially in my trips to North Carolina, where I hope to move sometime soon. I've crafted a lot of great collaborations, like my duo with Immerse called Moments of Peril. I've even opened up for Waka Flocka Flame in front of 1,000 students at NC State. I've headlined my own shows and my own sets, and I've released several projects, and I'm still trying to experiment and find new sounds and new ways to keep it fresh and fun and innovative. Right, so now we've reached the present, and after years of writing screenplays and manuscripts and years of rejection by publishers and managers and agents, and the mind-numbing task of writing hundreds, maybe even thousands of query letters and emailing them off to people just to get their attention, try to get someone to notice me, I had had enough of that. It was in October 2024 that I finally decided that I was going to rewrite and revamp John Bison into what is now, today, Manhattan 24. And you've already seen some of that. Could not be more proud and excited to finally share with you all the upcoming release of my very first novel, Manhattan 24. There's a very tedious process to formatting the book cover, which I wasn't doing properly, I guess. For me, I really see this book as a stepping stone to the next thing. You know, get a couple of eyes, you know, even if it's 10 people who read this book, maybe they share it or they tell other people my name, so that the next book after that gets 20 readers or 100, and then the book after that gets more, and you know, we keep building like rungs of a ladder. We keep climbing. That's really the goal with this. I'm under no illusions that Manhattan 24 is going to be some international phenomenon, or it's going to be on the New York Times bestseller list. I actually think it'll be the opposite of that. But I'm perfectly fine with that. And really, it all comes down to the love of storytelling and creativity and wanting to get my works out there and not waiting anymore, not holding on to these things that I have that they're... Yeah, here we are. 10 years after writing my first book, I'm finally releasing my first book with more on the way. Yeah, so that's it. This has been my journey so far, from writing to filmmaking to comic books to music, and who knows what my next obsession will be. But this has been The Four Passions, and I really hope you enjoyed the video, and I sincerely hope that you pick up your copy of Manhattan 24 when it releases on August 12th.